Okay, I was going to take today and do the final video of my rebooking of Nexus, that kind of stuff, my fantasy booking series. I was actually really excited about doing it because I had a whole bunch of stuff written down. But, and this of course is wrestling related, and pretty much any given content creator who does stuff on wrestling is talking about this, and this hits home to me in a number of ways. Okay? As you can see right here, I have everything laid out, and it's going to be pretty much like a long form type of deal. Okay? So get comfortable. I got water, so you get to see me drink from my bottle, my glass bottle of truth, my glass bottle of peace over here. Yes, that's right. So let me go and set that down here. And you're going to see that I have a lot to say about this. Anyone who has followed this channel for a significant amount of time, by that I mean like probably the last, I don't know when the last time I talked about this kind of stuff or my own personal life events was. It was probably about 5 or so years ago. It was a long time. And I decided, let me just do some stuff on gaming, stuff on wrestling, stuff on other stuff like that. But there comes a time where you witness something that happens in those areas. This particular thing being in the area of wrestling. Fortunately, nothing like this has happened in the gaming circles that I'm part of. God forbid. Like, watch. You'll hear something like this happen, like among the gamers at Limit Break or at Games Done Quick, and I really hope not. But whatever, it happens. So, anyways, rambling aside, so as you see everything I'm going to talk about right here. No jokes. If you don't have about, I'd say, if you don't have a few minutes to sit and listen to this or watch this, whatever, it's more of a listening thing, then by all means, just go and click on some other, some other video about this that has nothing but buzzwords and buzz phrases. And you're not going to hear that from me. Well, you're going to hear that from me, but you're going to hear me unravel those and unwrap that because it's important. Anyways, so over the last week or so, we've been hearing a lot from a lot of wrestling performers coming out and saying, like, this person did this really bad thing to me. A few examples of this are NWA's president, David Lagana. Apparently he took advantage of somebody. And Jim Cornette and his wife, apparently they were they were they were grooming performers in their OVW way back in the day when OVW was still a thing. When Cornette was the lead booker there, and he was getting he wanted to watch dudes have sex with his wife. Okay, that's kind of and whatever. I'm not going to mention that word, but yeah, that's the actual fetish of that, the fetishized version of that word, the literal version of that. And he and like, but in the way they were doing it is that they were like, if you have sex with my wife, then I will book you on this show. That kind of stuff. That's coercion. So that kind of stuff. And there's a whole smattering of them. I'm not going to go through them all because they all suck. They're all people taking advantage of others sexually. And like, if you want to hear about them in detail, you can go on Solo Monsters YouTube channel. You can go on Good Mike Works channel. Maybe OTRS will say something about it. Maybe Delixman will say something about it, or JD from NY06. I think it's still 06, isn't it? I don't know. I think JD from NY. Any given wrestling podcaster is going to talk in detail about who did what to whom. I'm not going to go over that here. All I'm going to say is that there's a lot of stuff involving sexual assault that has taken place, that's being revealed over and over and over in wrestling. And I have a theory about why that is. It's because when you are a traveling performer, you're on the road, you get pent up, you need to express that in some aspect. Sexual acts and sexual activity is one really good way to release tension, which is why a lot of us play with ourselves a lot. But if that doesn't solve the problem, look for other stuff to solve the problem. And sometimes that involves being a very bad person. Or not being bad, or yeah, being a very bad person. Or violating somebody's sexual privacy or sexual purity. I don't know. We're violating somebody. That's all it is. That's exactly what sexual assault is. It's just violation. Okay. I have experienced this on both sides, so I will go through this chronologically. And this used to be very uncomfortable for me to talk about, but now I talk about it all the time. I don't talk about it on first dates and shit, but I definitely talk about it after I've had sex with a woman for the first time. I say, look, the first time I had sex was not with a woman, and I did not consent. That was right after I turned 16 years old. This was with a boy who I've known since I was a little kid, since I was 8 years old. I played the very first Final Fantasy game with him. And he would struggle on the first boss, and I would beat the first boss's ass in like a few minutes. And he'd be like, how'd you do that? You know, that kind of stuff. We had experiences together. And one night, his folks were away. It was just me and him. And he put on some pornography. He got a few drinks. I'd never been drunk before. I'd gotten drunk at least, at most, I think exactly once before then. I had a few more glasses of Manischewitz than I should have at Passover in 1996 when I was like 13 years old, and I've just got really tired. But I never been really like pissed drunk before, and so me and this kid are making drinks, and he puts on pornography, and he starts playing with himself like right in front of me, and there was a tip-off to this because he had done the same thing to me and another friend of mine. And because I'd known this other guy a lot longer, I went to bat for him. I said, no, it's just a weird thing he does. You know, don't worry about it. Pay no mind. But he forced me violently using a kitchen knife to be sexual with him. And I didn't want to get a knife through my neck, so I said, okay, let's do this, whatever. He had sex with me. He wanted me to have sex with him without protection, by the way. So yeah. 2 years after that, I developed a crush on a cheerleader, and I did not know how to. Had no idea like what kind of conversations to have with chicks back in the day. With other girls, I was actually probably pretty smooth, and I could have asked a few of them out, it would have been fine. But this one cheerleader, I just had ridiculous feelings for, and I didn't know how to manage those feelings, and so I chased her around like a lost puppy. And by the middle of my senior year, she had enough, and she accused me of stalking her. So that's my other experience on the other side as the assailant. Okay? And then the most recent example was about 6 years ago. I was going out with a bisexual couple, and they wanted to share a guy. I'm like, this is every dude's fantasy. You know what I mean? Now these were like not attractive women in the traditional sense. They were both overweight women, and one of them was decisively overweight, like probably like at least weighed at least 250 pounds, but like it was 250 pounds of good proportion. You know what I mean? Like she wasn't like a human ball. Like she had, she was very well endowed. Trying to be as politically correct as I could possibly be, and as scientifically as I could, as scientific with my language as I could possibly be. So, and me and her had sex before, and I enjoyed it, and she enjoyed it, and we used protection. But there was one night where she did not want to use protection, and we were watching a football game, and like we had like a tradition where like we had like a superstition where if we all fooled around with each other during this football game, that our team would win. And so she fooled around with her girlfriend, and then she wanted to fool around with me. And she told me to sit in her lazy boy recliner, and I'm like, okay. And then she got on top of me and started playing around with me. I'm like, okay, this feels good, this feels good. And she attempted to put me inside of her without a condom on. And I said, no, I can't do that. You need to use a condom. And she was drunk. And I had a couple drinks, but nothing crazy. So, and then she very aggressively said, no, I want you to have sex with me without the condom. And then she's like, so she's trying really desperately, and because she was a bigger woman, it was difficult for her to get me inside of her. And with all my strength, I literally bench pressed this woman off of me and ran out of the door. I grabbed my keys. I didn't even have my pants. I left my pants there. And I left my wallet in my car, because I always do that. So I grabbed my keys, I grabbed my phone, and I sprinted to my car. Drove home wearing my boxers, barefoot by the way. I wore flip-flops, and I left those at their house too. And so I'm driving barefoot in my boxer shorts to my apartment. And yeah, so those are my experiences. And it's funny, I've seen comments on these videos from GMW and from Solo Monster and others saying, oh, how come you can't just report it right away when you're the victim or when you've been attacked? It's not that simple, man. I wish it could be that simple. I really do. I really wish something that traumatic could be that simple. I really wish at 16, I really wish I could just say to my dad, yo, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'll mention initials. I'll be like, yo, BA decided to, forced me to be sexual with him. Like, what can I do about this? You know what I mean? I'd love to say to some authorities, that, I was going out with this woman and she threatened and she physically coerced me to have sex with her without a condom, and I didn't want to, and I had to throw her off of me, and report it and stuff like that. That stuff is very complicated to do, and I'm going to get to that in the fourth point, as you can see. So doing this is very complicated. Anyone who has that kind of observation has no idea what they're talking about, and that's okay. And I'm glad they don't have an idea of what they're talking about, because when this happens to you, it hurts. And it sets you back. It sets you back months, if not years. Because you say to yourself, like what happened when I was 16? I said to myself, what am I, gay now? Because my first sexual experience was with a boy? But I still, masturbate to women, to naked women, who are reading Playboy and shit? Like, you ask yourself those questions. What if I just cooperated? Or what if I made the first move? Or, or what the woman who wanted me to have sex with her unprotected, why was her girlfriend just sitting there watching? If I wanted babies just as much as she did, would I have been able to have a decent sexual experience with her? You get all those questions in your head, and those questions, those stop you from reporting what happened to you. And then when you report, you put the other person's life into perspective. You go, oh man, if I report this person, these are people who I knew. You know what I mean? Like when I was 16, it was with a childhood friend, someone who I'd known for 10 years till then. You know what I mean? Up to that point. Do I really want to throw that away? The kid who I played the very first Final Fantasy game with, and we beat it together. We beat that game together. It was glorious. Like, I'll never forget that. Those are the memories I want. We played Chrono Trigger together. I remember he came up during spring break, he would come back. He would come to Florida during the break periods in school. He was living in Virginia, and he brought Chrono Trigger and Earthbound, and I started playing those games. And he was like, "Yo, these games are amazing." So yeah, they are. I've been reading them in Nintendo Power, and they're fantastic. You know, do I want to throw all that away to just because there might have been a misunderstanding or something like that, and you go through all that when you get attacked sexually. Because it's more often than not it's with people who you know. Now, if it's with someone who you don't know, for example, I think it was 5 or so years ago, that Brock Turner kid who fingered this unconscious chick, and the chick didn't know him or anything, that's different. If it's a total stranger, then yes, then find a way to report it as soon as you can, and then yeah, then get that jerk off thrown in prison for a while, and hope they learn their damn lesson. Well, if it's with someone you know, or if it's with a superior who you work with, which is what happened to a lot of the wrestlers and to a lot of the performers that they were talking about. There's gray areas there. There's a lot of gray areas there. And before I go into those gray areas, I want to say one thing. There's only one thing that I wanted as a victim of this. I don't like using that word. I hate that word. I hate the word victim. The word victim is... I despise that word. Because I've been one for practically my entire life. And it sucks. It's awful. When you're a victim, you may as well be a fucking vampire, man, because that's what you are. You're thinking to yourself, and you're a victim. Oh, the whole world's against me. No one understands me. That kind of stuff, and it makes sense when you are a victim, when you are that emotionally raw. But when you're not a victim, but when you understand that you're just you're letting your emotions speak for you, and that's not good. That's when you come to your senses. And one thing that you need to do when you're a victim of this kind of stuff is to come to your own senses, and you say to yourself, I need support. That's the only thing I ever wanted. That, my God. My neighbors have the loudest vehicles in the world. I don't know can you hear that? I can hear it. It's crazy. I thought my car was loud. My car, the belts, are messed up. Or the pulley that has the belt messed up. But that one, that old car doesn't need to be replaced. Damn. I'll buy him a new car. Let me get some money, buy him a new car. Get stimulated from this stuff that's going on around us. Now I'm glad I'm well, which is good. Anyways, yeah, so now that's over. That's the only thing I wanted as a victim. Or as a... Oh, I'll just use the word victim. Whatever, I'll just use it. As someone who was trying to recover. That's the only thing I wanted was support. And some answers. Some answers after what happened when I was 16. And some support after what happened when I was 32. Now, when I was accused of sexual deviance, which is stalking is sexual deviance, I want support for that too, because I felt like I felt hurt. I'm like, man, this girl wants nothing to do with me, and now she wants me to stay away from her, or else I'm gonna be in trouble with the law. Does that make me a bad person? So all those things, all those questions are why there are so many gray areas in this aspect of, I should say sexual deviance, not social deviance. So, and this is where my social science background comes into play. So, sexual assault and rape and other stuff like that, I lump it all in together as sexual deviance. This is where you coerce somebody, and I'm not going into gender, I'm going to go a little bit into gender and sex and whatever that is. But anyways, it's when you coerce somebody to perform a sexual act, and you follow through without their permission, whether it's physical or verbal. It could be physical, but most of the time it's physical. Like with the women I go out with, if I want to have sex with them, okay, I'll make a move, I'll grope a little bit. If they pull back or if they say, no, 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 I don't want to do that, then guess what? I stop because, no shit, like, I don't want to be a sexual deviant because I know what that's like to happen to me. So I say, okay, I'll stop. Maybe wait another date or something like that, or maybe you go out with another woman, or something like that, and then try again later, and then try again later, and then okay, then she gropes me back, then she kisses me, then I kiss her, and then we're groping each other, and then we're taking each other's clothes off, and then we have sex. And then during sex, if she doesn't want to have sex anymore, then I stop. Not that difficult to do. But there are gray areas here. Absolutely. Like, what if that's a big thing in men's movements, is that they say, oh, what if the woman regrets it and then they accuse you of sexual deviance anyways? Does that happen? The chances of that happening to you, it's pretty slim. It's not. I mean, I've had sex with almost 25 women now. Fun fact about me. And one of them I had sex with like a lot over and over and over. So it's like, yeah. And, not one has done that. You know what I mean? So that's not, that only happens when you are in a position of power or influence. And that's why, those are the gray areas there. The gray areas are, okay, what if, are some of these people who got attacked, are they making it up because they just want to see someone's life get destroyed? And given that our culture is one that revolves around vengeance, it is. That's how Western religion, most of Western religion is based around that. And since the Western world has pretty much been a theocracy light for centuries, that's kind of ingrained in our culture. So there's one gray area, and the gray area of, okay, well, what if it just got out of control? What if I just went too far and it didn't know because it couldn't read the body language or the social cues or whatever? That's another gray area. What if, what if, oh, well, they wanted me to do this and I wanted them to do that and we couldn't come to agreement, but like it was almost like you forced each other. There's gray areas. That's another gray area. There's so many gray areas in this aspect of deviance, because it's not like physical assault where you just hit somebody. Everyone could see that. You know what I mean? You can see the scars prove it if it happens within like a home or something like that. Like, if my parents hit me growing up, which thankfully that never happened, a little bit, just like a little love tap. You know what I mean? Like, I got slapped. You know what I mean? But not like a punch. It's not like my mom. It's not like my parents busted my nose wide open because I put my hand in a cookie jar or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm laughing out of nervousness there because that actually did happen to a buddy of mine, and he was dealing with that for a while. You know what I mean? But so you can go to the authorities and say, this scar was from my parent or guardian who just hit me. And then parent gets questioned, that kind of stuff. Or it's not like, or it's not like stealing something, where like if you steal something in public or in an establishment, whoever runs the establishment or works at the establishment will say, yeah, that person stole something, it's on the camera, so there you go, And sexual deviance is not like that, in that there's no, in that proving it, that it actually happened is very, there's a lot less physical evidence that can be shown. You know what I mean? There are a few examples where evidence can be shown. You know what I mean? Like, for example, with the woman who forced me to have sex with her unprotected. Well, let's say that I was wearing a condom and she just forced herself onto me anyways, and I didn't like it, but I went through with the intercourse and stuff like that. Well, what I could do is I can get tests run on the condom, and then that is evidence. Or in a lot of these in a lot of the cases with the allegations with the wrestling performers and other stuff like that, is that you see a lot of direct messages and message dialogues and texts and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Uh, there's gray areas in that kind of evidence too. You know what I mean? Although some of it's very decisive, some of it is not so decisive. So you don't know. So the evidence is not nearly as decisive as with other forms of social deviance, and that's why you see a lot of these groups talking about rape culture. You hear this a lot from women's groups, and it's like I said, I'm not going to draw a distinction between gender, because I do believe that sexual deviance is something that transcends gender. You know what I mean? You can't just make a talking point to say, "Oh, it happens to guys too." Chicks, chicks force themselves onto dudes. Like, again, that's happened to me. It happened to me from a guy. It happened to me from a woman. But either way, that makes zero difference. That doesn't make any difference to me. It really doesn't. Like, I don't really care. All I cared about was getting support. I didn't care about punishing them. You know what I mean? Oh, that makes you a bad person. That means you're gonna let them run free so they can do it to someone else. Yeah, because I'm worried about my own shit. I'm worried about my own mental health, so I can help others who have done this, who have went through this. This way, I can create a culture of support instead of one based on, of empty vengeance. You know what I mean? So yeah. So those are all the gray areas. So as this stuff happens, as people speak out more and more and more, you see those who committed those acts and fans turning on them and stuff like that. That is called, certain YouTubers, I think there's a YouTuber called The Rewired Mind or something, and he was doing the same thing. Practically the same thing I'm doing, only he pretended to have a like a degree in social work and stuff like that, and I do not. I'm just a dude who has stories and insights that may help other people. You know what I mean? That's all I am. I'm not any specialist at all, but this Rewired guy thought that. But he wrote a book called Cancel Culture, where, like, even at the hint that somebody did something wrong to somebody else, now, like, fans and detractors want them to not have any platform to make any kind of content at all. And there's people who, there are those who are big fans of that. There are those who are not big fans of that. Again, gray is where you play, man. My shirt's made of gray. I wear a lot of gray. That's because that's how it is, man. Gray is where you play. So there's gray areas in both. There's gray areas in that, too. Who should be canceled? And what needs to happen to them for them to be canceled? Okay? Or what do they need to do to actually be canceled? Okay? Look. To me, everyone deserves a second chance. Unless you've taken someone's life. That's different. You murdered somebody, then it's over. Okay? That's the only part of this, what I call antiquated justice, vengeance light, that I agree with. Okay? If you've taken somebody's life, and we saw that, the whole George Flynn thing, then yes, that dude needs to be killed himself because he killed somebody. Like, you just killed somebody, so you don't deserve to live either, buddy. And that, to me, transcends race. Okay? And that's not a popular talking point nowadays because we hear another story of a white dude killing a black guy. I'm going to leave that there, though, because it's not about that. This is about a different thing. But With other kinds of deviance, everyone deserves a second chance. Okay, do some time. This way they can stay away from others who they could possibly terrorize. They learn their lesson. They say, okay, I went to the can for whatever, a year, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, however long you stay in that prison for. And you say, okay, now I'm out, now I'm free, and I want to stay like that so I don't want to hurt anybody else or do the same thing that I did. That's fine, right? Well, we should think of it in the same way as canceling these individuals, okay? And what gave Cornette away, and I'm like going to use Cornette as an example because I saw that's the most content I've seen on this, is that Cornette was like, oh, he like fired back in another tweet about, in response to the tweet about him and his wife doing these things. He said, oh, if you're going to fake this, at least remember to attach the right picture to the right comment or something like that. To me, that's a dead giveaway. That he actually did that kind of stuff. And that he was actually a sexual deviant. Because if he was not, then he wouldn't have had that kind of sarcastic remark. He would have been like, I do remember you. I remember my wife maybe wanting to have something to do with you. Would you care to elaborate and have a conversation with me to see how we can work this out? Because it seems like you're affected by this and I want to help you. You know what I mean? So yeah, like if Cornette's going to act that way, if he's going to take this as just another attack from a detractor, it seems, it's funny. It's like, and I haven't mentioned this guy in a while, in probably about 3 or so years, but Jim Cornette reminds me of DSP a lot. He reminds me of Darkside Phil in that he used to be like a solid contributor to wrestling in the same way that DSP was a solid contributor to YouTube. It's back before 2015, before this DSP decided to rob people with his Patreon page. You know, people paying him and he delivers on nothing. You know what I mean? That was 5 years ago too. Shit. You know. So, and when people have those kind of responses, like Cornette and like DSP have those kind of sarcastic responses, instead of one that's about sympathy or even innocence, like, oh, I had no idea that happened. A lot of stuff happened back then, you know. That gives away like their evil intentions and the evil in their soul. Okay, I don't think Cornette's a good person anymore. I don't. And yeah, if you see more of this stuff happening to Cornette, and if you see him coming up with these kind of responses, you know, then cancel Cornette because individuals like them and DSP or anyone else who decides to attack accusations or allegations with not just denial, but see it as like an attack on their character, then they're not making good content anyways. So canceling them would actually clear things up for those who make excellent content and solid content that people can be entertained by, people can learn from, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what needs to happen in order for someone like this to be canceled. Pro Jared, great example of someone who really did not deserve to be canceled because he got those. He was accused of stuff and he had a very sympathetic approach to it. He said, yes, I had underage fans. I said, yeah. He said, yes. There was some sexting going on. Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. Why should I deny that? It's right there in my face. However, I love all my fans, and I would never hurt any of my fans. As far as him attempting an open marriage and it not working, that kind of stuff, and he cleared it all up, and he made a really good comeback. Because he was genuinely a good person. Jared was a good person. Pro Jared was. Jared Fogle from Subway, we can't even talk about that. But, but people like Cornette, literally think that the world is against them, even if it's in the form of their fans. Which is why I've always been a bigger fan of Russo than Cornette, because Vince Russo just wants to be happy, he wants to be religious, and he wants to be happy. He wants to put wrestling behind him. He was never a wrestling fan to begin with, and he admitted that in 2005 in a segment with Mike Tenay on TNA Wrestling. Meanwhile, Jim Cornette he's a broken person. And I think he's always been a broken person. And those kind of people, if they're going to make content and they're going to keep being toxic, then they need to be canceled. But no one should just be canceled because they did one thing wrong. Okay? Even if it's sexual deviancy. Even if it's sexual deviance. Even if it is being a sexual deviant. Let's say what happened to me 20 years ago. Let's say this YouTube channel was way bigger and I was 18 instead of 38, and I made making Fortnite streams, because that's what 18-year-olds play. And let's say I was just about as popular as Ninja, and then let's say that the cheerleader that I was talking about earlier, let's say that she accused me of stalking. What, am I going to get canceled because of that one thing? You know what I mean? But if it happens multiple times, that's different. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyways, okay. So this leads me to believe, or not really believe, just makes me a theory of mine, is that when it comes to these individuals being taken advantage of sexually, again, all I wanted was support. I didn't want anything bad to happen to a boy who took advantage of me when I was 16. I wanted an explanation from him. I wanted an apology from him, which he never did. Okay, he never apologized. But that's all I wanted. I didn't want him to be thrown in jail. I didn't want his life to be ruined. All I wanted was him to say, yo, what I did was messed up. I was just really drunk and horny and curious as a 15-year-old kid. I don't know what you're going through, but it can't be good. Let me try and get some support for you. You know what I mean? Let me try and help you now. Or even the woman who forced me to have sex with her without a condom. Even if she said to me the next day, or if she texted me, or even if I didn't have her number, I had her girlfriend's number. So even if her girlfriend said, my girl just got up and she remembers what happened last night and she wanted to apologize to you, come over to the house. I'll be there. You'll be protected. You'll be safe. Let's just hash things out and clear everything out and clear the air. You know what I mean? That would have sufficed. That would have been very sufficient. But at no point was I ever concerned if they were going to do that to somebody else, because I can't control what goes on around me. We have this. So when we analyze crime and punishment, we tend to go way too far, and we tend to live by our ideals. Okay, we tend to say that something isn't right, and the whole world now needs to change based on our ideal. And now we got people doing the lawn and stuff outside. That's nice. Anyways, whatever. You probably hear this over that. Anyways. And to me, and that's pretty much what justice is. That's the pursuit of justice. And I was raised Jewish, so Old Testament all the way. See a lot of that in the Old Testament. And what people don't understand is that the West, not the East, but the West, has always been a culture that revolves around two things: around power and around vengeance. It's those two things. And we love to strive for what I call power light, which is influence over others. And we also want vengeance light, which is what we call justice. Now, some things, like I said, the only exception to this is taking somebody's life. The punishment there is justified. Okay? You take someone's life, then your life should be taken. That's an eye for an eye, and I'll take that to the grave. I will. Absolutely. But stuff like any other kind of deviance, you need to use understanding. Unless it's repeat offense. Okay? Again, let's use Jim Cornette. So let's say that a whole bunch of people said, yes, Jim Cornette did this, and he did this, and he got away with it for so long. And if he wants to continue doing that, even though he now has heat on him, yes, now he needs to be locked up. Now it needs to be investigated very deeply, like SVU type stuff. And yes, if it's revealed that he did that kind of stuff and he got away with it for years and years and decades, then guess what? Now he's going to pay the piper. Now he's in jail for life, or for 5 to 10, or 10 to 20, or whatever the hell, 20 to life, that kind of stuff. Whatever. Put him in prison. Have him pay for his sins. His sins. We still hear that. Oh, he's going to repent for his sins. You know what I mean? Still, in 2020, stuff from like thousands of years ago are still part of our discourse. And does it hold up? To me, it doesn't. It doesn't, because you can punish people till the cows come home. You can punish people till kingdom come. Okay? But where's the understanding? And I feel like a lot of victims, a lot of these people who have been taken advantage of, who have been sexually taken advantage of, they get lost in the pursuit. Just by passers-by, by those who stand by and they witness it. You know what I mean? Not like witness it, like read about it and stuff like that. And instead of saying, "Oh man, I want to reach out to this guy, this girl, this person. I want to reach out to them and make sure that they're okay. I want to make sure they're okay. I want to make sure that they're functioning right. I want to make sure that they're able to go on with their life." And I want to make sure that they get support. It's all about support. I choose to concentrate on support when it comes to issues like this, because that is more important than making sure that the deviant gets what they deserve. Okay? Which is, whether it's investigation, whether it's in prison, whether it's fines, whether it's death penalty, whether it's whatever, that makes no difference. I want to concentrate on support, because I've been through this kind of stuff on both sides. I've been accused of stalking when I was in high school. I've been taken advantage of sexually twice in my life. And as somebody who has endured that, I choose support. Support. This way, it's paying it forward. So if I use my methods of recovery, which there is a lot of, and that goes very deep, and I've written ebooks about it, and I'm about to market it like crazy this last week of June. You're going to see a lot of that, not only on this YouTube channel, but you're going to see it on my websites, other stuff like that, and even on streams and stuff like that. Like on my live streams on Twitch, I'll put my company, well, not my company name, but whatever, my brand name, you know, that kind of stuff. And I'm going to put that on here too. And I'm going to make a clickable link. You go to my website, and you can get all kinds of support on stuff like this. I want to create a culture of support. It's like I said, I didn't want anyone who took advantage of me to get punished. I wanted support more than that. I wanted to go to somebody and not pay, fucking how much is it for to see a counselor now? What, $100? Depending on your city, probably more than that. You know what I mean? I want someone who's accessible, and I want a group of people who are accessible, who could say, yes, I know what you've been through. I've been through the same. I want to support you. Here's what I did. That's what I wanted. I wanted that in 1998 when it happened to me the first time, and I wanted it in 2014 when it happened the second time. And it was very difficult to get support. I will never forget this. Okay, so this is the last tangent, and then I'm going to conclude this video. And you're going to see the last Nexus one next Monday. Anyways, okay, so I'm at college, and I'm looking for good group counseling stuff, because counseling is free if you're taking classes, which is excellent at college. It's good. And I said, is there a group for sexual assault victims? Because I've been sexually assaulted. Well, this is before 2014. This was in 2011. So it was just the one time it happened. And they said yes, but it's women only. Men can't join it. I'm like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, because a lot of them see men as like, as a lot of them get, and I understood after hearing the explanation, because because women, they see it more differently than guys. You know what I mean? That's just one advantage that guys do have over women, is that I see sexual assault as just somebody who bullied me into having sex with them, or performing or being sexual with them. With a woman, because it's the intercourse affects them a lot different than with guys. It's a different feeling. You know what I mean? I understand that. And then once I heard the explanation, I said, yes, that's fine, but still think there should be one for guys, because a lot of gay people now coming out and saying, yo, I'm gay, that kind of stuff. It's being more accepted, which is excellent. So what if there's a whole bunch of gay guys? What if there's gay guys who said, yeah, man, well, I've been sexually assaulted, but I can't find any groups in my college about that. What do I do? So, and that is what led me to create what I call, I'm going to write this down. Again, my membership site is not up yet, but I do want to announce it. It's called The Immortal as you hear that nonsense in the background. Thanks, guys. So that's what caused me to make my group, my membership, called the Immortal Individual Inclusion. This is going to be a Slack page where you can talk to people from all walks of life about support for this very thing, among others. So I talk about, and it's going to include, it has exclusive unlisted videos where I talk about this at about this length of time, only it's way more in detailed. You can only see them if you're part of the membership. And what I'm going to do in the next few days is I'm going to break down how much it costs to be a member, what you get, and other stuff like that. Because if we're going to see people speaking out about this stuff, I want to be there to help. I want to be there to help as somebody who has dealt with this personally, who has struggled with it for all of his 20s and the first half of his 30s. You know what I mean? And it sucks. It held me back a lot. It set me back a lot. And I want to be there to help, like a young person who said, yes, this happened to me. I don't know what to do. And I say, okay, here's what you can do. This way they don't spend 15 years figuring it out like I did. I want them to spend in 15 weeks, 15 months, what I took 15 years to recover from. So, That's going to be a big thing. I'm going to be kind of advertising it on this channel. You're still gonna, I'm not gonna like advertise it in every video. I'm just gonna make some information videos about it. I might put one of my unlisted videos and make it public. I'm gonna use this next week where I'm taking a much needed vacation, like for the rest of June when it comes to my other jobs. But yeah, so I want to help those who have been through this kind of stuff. No matter who did it to them, doesn't matter to me. If you've been sexually assaulted and you need some help and you want some help and you want it for cheap, then join the Immortal Individual Inclusion. You're going to get an information video sometime within the next week. An information video on how much you can spend, what you get with each tier, and other stuff like that. And it's not going to be Patreon. It's just going to be direct through PayPal or through any other stuff. Probably Venmo too. So yeah. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Be responsible when you pursue sex. Okay? No matter what it is. Whether it's regular sex or S&M stuff, whatever you are pursuing, be responsible. Respect the other person's ability to refuse. Okay? And if you've been a victim of this, it's okay to let people know about it. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It really isn't. It isn't. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Look, I'm still standing after that, what happened to me when I was 16, when I was 32. I'm still standing. I'm still here. I'm still here, and I'm doing way better than I was when I was in my 20s. I have more energy than I had in my 20s. I sleep better. I do things better. I can work longer. You know what I mean? I look just as young as I did. People go like, oh my God, you're in your late 30s. You look like you're in your mid-20s. That's great. Want to know why? It's because starting in my 30s, I took necessary steps to make my life way better. And you should do that too. You should do that too if something like this has happened to you. Okay. Take care of yourselves. I'm rambling for a lot longer than I wanted to, but it's okay because it's an important video. I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.